Greetings, family. This is Iapo. It's been a minute since I've done a live video, but there has been something I wanted to be a little bit more deliberate about how I talked about this, and this won't be very long, but I swear every single day something comes up that forces me to say, okay, I need to stop and take a minute to talk about what I want to talk about. So what I want to talk about is the different ways that the policing of women's bodies manifests itself, especially among those of us who call ourselves organizers or who call ourselves progressive in some way, right? So we become, quote, conscious or spiritual or rebellious or revolutionary, but there still tends to be this one area where we are the most afflicted, and that affliction presents itself as this tendency to deny women their right to whole humanness. And this tendency is not peculiar to men. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. This tendency, a lot of the time, is just as prevalent among women as it is men. In a lot of ways, women are some of the most vicious perpetrators of misogyny. They are some of the most relentless upholders of the patriarchy. And it is because of this internalized self-hate, this internalized self-denial of whole humanness based on a bunch of social mores that have been imposed on us, typically by Christianity, but not exclusively. So I had a personal experience a week ago that I was just going to write about, and eventually I was like, God, should I write a paper about it? Like, it really had me in my feelings for a while, right? And then I read this article today about Azalea Banks. I'm not really familiar with this girl. I've heard her name a lot of the time, but typically it's in reference to some controversy, right? So I read this article today about Azalea Banks going in really, really viciously against Lizzo. And she called her a mammy. She said something to the effect that she was buck dancing for white people. I mean, it was the most slanderous, gruesome, nasty spiel I'd ever seen. And the problem is there were so many people, men and women, who agreed with her. But at the end of the day, if a white person had said word for word exactly what this woman had said about Lizzo, then we would know exactly what it was. White nationalism, hatred of women, straight up, white male dominated patriarchal bullshit, right? We'd be clear. But because this vitriol was coming out of the mouth of a black woman, all of a sudden it gets some attention. There's some people defending Lizzo, but all in all, there were still so many people agreeing. And the thing that struck me is, if Lizzo was, 50 pounds lighter, would this have been an issue? Right? So the fact that this girl, this woman, she's a young woman. She's not much older than my daughter. This young woman who comes out the gate saying, I'm going to live my life on my terms, on purpose, in my full sexuality, in my whole humanness, is being policed by women primarily. The majority of the people that I saw that had something vile to say about her were women. I mean, talking about this woman's appearance, slandering her. And so as a lay person, we can look at it and we can say, oh, she's just hating on her because of her fame. She's hating on her because of this or that. But as a political person, I have to ask myself a deeper question, like, what is the origin? What is the root of this kind of foul nastiness that comes out, especially when dealing with black women? Because of any group of people on the planet Earth, the people who are least deserving of being whole humans are Black women, right? And that is based both in patriarchy, which is the hatred of women, right? And white nationalism, which is the hatred primarily of Blackness, right? So even colorism has its origin in Black skin hatred. We have to be clear about what it is we're looking at, right? So this experience that I had personally, that I had, kind of debated back and forth about, I was seriously just going to write a paper. I'm still going to probably write a paper because we have to have an honest discussion about what sovereignty is. There's so many of us who have been involved in political life, political work, revolutionary work, activism, who talk about sovereignty, who talk about freeing the world, who talk about what the world is going to look like once capitalism is defeated, right? Once the workers come to power. But we don't ever have an honest conversation about the fact that if the workers came together tomorrow to make a revolution, would the conditions of women and children be magically transformed? And it wouldn't, because there is still this nasty pervasiveness of the hatred of women, the hatred of their bodies, and what men in general and women who have internalized that ideology have accepted as our lack of an entitlement to be fully human, to be whole humans, to be defined as a person, not based on our relationships to others. Because as it stands, and it's not peculiar to Black women, but as a Black woman, I recognize where I land on the social totem pole, right? But at the end of the day, women, girls, from the moment they are born until they step their foot into the grave, are always defined by their relationships to someone else. Always. Their value is squarely placed on their proximity, typically to men. Their daddy's little girl, they're somebody's baby mama, they are somebody's wife, they're somebody's mother. And no matter what the nature of the relationship is, as soon as that relationship has ended, that woman's value has suddenly ended or is called into question. For example, I'll be 44 years old in a week. I have a child, I have stepchildren, I have grandchildren, I have another grandchild on the way, and I am single. And I am a sexually active single woman, right? And it never ceases to amaze me that at 44 years old, when I meet a man, probably the third question that they're going to ask is, why aren't you married? Why don't you have a man? And there's subtext there. Like in their mind, it might be innocent, but the subtext is still the same. One, that something must be wrong with you if you are not attached to someone, or if someone doesn't want you, right? Or there's something wrong with you in another way. So you might be crazy, you must be crazy, or you must be a man hater if you are not in a relationship that is defining of you. What do you mean you're single? What do you mean you don't want any more kids? I am 43 years old, and do you know people are still asking me, don't you want more kids? And they don't understand why I think that that's insane. That I have a 23-year-old daughter. I have a granddaughter. I have, step grandchildren coming and god grandchildren coming. And they want to know, like, what, quote, sane woman who still has the ability to have children doesn't want more. You only have one child? These are the kinds of discussions, but they are so insidious because we have been acculturated to accept that a woman's sole value in this society is to belong to someone else, whether that's a partner or whether that's children, right? Because our children listen, if you've been a single parent, then your children are just as demanding of you and your time as a partner is, right? When my daughter was a teenager, I had to call and check in, make sure I was okay, make sure she was okay. When are you coming home, mama? That's the same thing a spouse would ask or a partner would ask. And again, until we really come to terms with what sovereignty is, what real freedom looks like, freedom is not going to exist if women can't be free. If women cannot be free to live a life that is purely defined by who they are as individuals, not being defined by their proximity to somebody else. That's not to say that I'm opposed to families and partnership and love, and I want all the same things that every other human wants, but not at the expense of my own sovereignty. That my value as a human being is constantly being called into question. I've been in the damn revolutionary work 20 years of my life. Half my whole life, has been spent doing revolutionary work, activist work. I have raised children. I've gone to medical school. And at this day and age, I am still having people who know me. This isn't strangers, people who know me, who still call my value into question. When I got on the road to come to California last year, and I said that I was going to drive across country by myself, that I was going to camp the entire way, that every state that I stopped in, I was going to camp there. I was going to experience something for myself and on my own terms. I swear, I know it was probably based in love for a lot of people and concern. I'm a little black girl driving across country by myself. But the thing that immediately struck me was like, God damn, if I had been white with a penis or even just a penis, it would have been a non-issue. As a matter of fact, not only would it not have been an issue, it would have been seen as exciting and, you're a risk taker and you're an adventurer. The dialogue would have been totally different. And it's not on some hyper feminist, like, anything you can do, I can do better. That's not what I am talking about. I am talking about the ability for women to have full ownership of every aspect of their goddamn lives. Full ownership without the imposition of others on it. On it. Their vaginas, their uteruses, their breasts, their ass, their brains, every aspect of their lives, them being fully in power and control over. That's what sovereignty is. We keep talking about we want sovereignty. We want to live in a world where people of the world have a right to live on their own terms, but somehow, even among the progressive community, that don't apply to women. It's insidious. It's really frustrating. I try to be, I'm a Virgo, so I'm always self-critical anyway, but I'm always trying to, be a better person. Always. I'm deliberate about that. I've gotten to an age in my life where if I'm, even with my own children, to not be so arrogant that I can't apologize if I'm in error, right? That I can't go back and say, you know what? Even if I believe what I said, I handled it really wrong and I want to apologize. I'm always being just more aware of my relationships with other people and moving with a level of integrity and, high character. But I'm going to tell you this thing, and I mentioned the whole Azalea Banks thing because it is just a small indicator of what is going on in this society, that even women would presume to have a right to encroach on someone else's sovereignty, because that's what we're talking about. When we have a conversation about whole humanness, when we have a conversation about not policing women's vaginas, I hear that a lot, or not policing women's bodies, we're talking about sovereignty. It's a political question that we're talking about. And if we're serious about changing the world, if we're serious about creating something better for us and for ourselves, if we're talking about creating a world where it is unacceptable to trample on the lives and the bodies of women and children the way that it is happening in this society now, then we have to be having an honest conversation among ourselves, those of us who call ourselves progressive, about what sovereignty actually looks like in the real world. That not anything you can do, I can do better kind of bullshit philosophy. I'm talking about what humans have a right to expect when they choose to materialize onto this planet. Whatever you believe spiritually, I believe in reincarnation. When we choose our lives, I believe anybody that is born has a right to live on their own terms, so long as their terms do not impose on the ability of someone else to live on their own terms. That's what sovereignty is. It ain't complicated. That we come here and we have a right to be here, and we have a right to experience the best of what the planet has to offer without damaging the planet and without damaging the other beings that live on this planet. It's that simple. That's what sovereignty is. If I want to have sex with 100 men, 1,000 men in my lifetime, that should not call into question my integrity. That's my position. If I want to do whatever I want to do, see, social mores, and I'm a spiritual woman. You all know me. Those of you who know me know me. I'm a spiritual woman. I believe in moral character, but I also believe that a lot of the social mores that we accept have again been imposed on us for the purpose of power and control and domination, for the purpose of creating human beings that are self-policing, that do not live on purpose, that do not live out loud, right? And so when you see somebody like Lizzo who lives out loud, that's her truth. Let that girl be her. Let her do her. Why? And why does it have to be some woman that comes out and attempts to spit venom on this girl's life and her future and her ability to live the way she wants to live? I don't know. I guess I'm kind of rambling, but it was just on me today, man. And I'll have to share later the experience that I had that had me in my feelings this week. It has been a long time since I've been in my feelings. Like it takes a lot for people to get under my skin. I've chopped people off the chopping block with the quickness. Like, I love people. I love meeting people. I don't meet strangers. But if I feel you doing me dirty or you're spitting venom on my name, I have no problem chopping you clean off the slate and acting like we never knew each other. And so this thing that happened this week just had me take a step back. And anyway, so that's all I really wanted to say. But when you find yourself judging someone, when you find yourself even in your own head saying, why she dressed like that? Why she look like that? Why she wear that out the house? Don't she know better? Don't she know what she look like? Check yourself. Check yourself. That's the only way we're going to move forward, is if we begin to, instead of casting judgment, even silently, casting judgment on others, we are silently bringing our spirit back into harmony and saying, where is this judgment coming from? Why am I offended by what this woman has on her body when she walks out of her house? Why am I offended or in my feelings when this person steps out and looks the way that they look? And that goes for everybody. That goes for everybody. Increasingly, I just don't accept any of the judgments that we have grown accustomed to making and accepting hearing. People have a right to live. People have a right to live on their own terms. People have a right to set the terms for the life they experience on this planet. We have no right to impose our will on anyone. No one, not children either. We have to do better, or this shit is never going to change. And I'm an optimist, but this shit will never change if we do not start doing the self-work on our own hearts that has us remove the spirit of judgment from our hearts so that people around us can live and so that we can actually finally live in a life that's actually happy and based in gratitude. And that's all I have to say about that.